The Bucks dropped their final home game of the Grapefruit schedule as camp is coming to a close for the Pirates. We still have active camp battles. Endy or Henry? That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Pirates your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And our first topic today, Henry versus Endy. Well, you better get your bets in quick, everybody. Before I get into that, there's a new host. Yeah, and yes, it's me, Gary Morgan. Some of you probably remember me from being a guest on here almost every Monday. Others might know me from Pirates Fan Forum or Steel City Pirates, where I do all my writing. You'll have plenty of time to get to know me, and I want to feel firm in the saddle before I start telling you all the great stuff we're going to do together, what days I'll do what theme. So let's not waste time. Jump right into what I do best, which is talk baseball. We'll let the rest of it sort itself out as we keep going through this process. Henry Davis and Endy Rodriguez have really been a best case scenario situation as far as a camp battle goes all spring. We came into this wondering about Endy's health. And we all came into this wondering about Henry Davis's ability to still hit the baseball at the major league level. To be fair, we don't know that yet. All we've seen is spring. But you can only really dissect what you have to deal with, right? We all knew Joey Bart was going to be the starting catcher. He had kind of earned that last year. 16 home runs for a power starved team on honestly limited duty. He didn't really play as many games as you would think last year. So certainly he had earned his stripes, and he's done nothing this spring to show he should lose them. He has been stinging the baseball all spring long. So absolutely no regrets there. Endy Rodriguez, I personally didn't think would be anywhere near as far along as he is right now. He looks fully recovered to me. Made a terrible throw to third today, but so be it, right? That's going to happen every once in a while. I honestly think Henry has jumped ahead of him defensively. That doesn't necessarily mean that he wins this battle. But as we talk it through, let's factor it in, right? I think Davis has probably won the job if you were just basing it on defense as far as a backup catcher goes. I guess before I even go any further, we should talk about why would you let one of these young kids be a backup, right? I mean, that's the traditional thinking. You would go with somebody like a Jason DeLay, who they already optioned to the minors, because you want to have somebody that, for lack of a better way of putting it, you don't care about. You don't care if this guy gets at bats because he's not a prospect. He's not somebody you're dreaming of. He's not somebody you think is going to take you to the promised land, if you will, right? So you keep your prospects hungry and playing every day in the minors, giving them an opportunity to build themselves up and turn themselves into somebody that you just can't deny anymore. You get them up. Hopefully they outplay your current starter, or you find a way to balance the scales there, right? Well, Joey Bart, he kind of has a checkered history himself, right? He's taken a long time to go. Failure to launch, injury issues, playing time issues, competition issues in San Francisco. Patrick Bailey beat him out ultimately, which is why he was made available in the first place via waiver. So exciting that we get a chance to bring in a player and he actually hits for us. This seems to happen to the Pirates all the time. It's nice to have it actually happen for us once. And I'm certainly not going to complain that they've got a solidified position. But Joey Bart is probably not going to catch 120 games this year. He's never caught even 100 in his entire career for various reasons, but still, there's a good chance he's going to DH some. There's a good chance he's going to need to sit. There's a good chance that backup is going to actually get some playing time. I'm talking like 3-4 games a week type playing time, especially if it's somebody like Endy Rodriguez who can play other positions, although they have not allowed him to do that yet this spring. So that kind of puts he and Henry in the same bucket. Until they prove they're going to let Endy play other positions, it's a straight up catcher battle, right? It'd be different if they had been showing us Endy playing first base all year. That with the absence of Horwitz, that probably would have made a lot of sense. For whatever reason, who am I to judge what they do with a kid's elbow that just got repaired? This is the way they decided to go. I'm just working with what we've been given. If it's a straight up defensive battle behind the plate, I personally feel stronger about Davis right now. And it's not by a whole lot. It's just a little. I don't think this will come down to like somebody like Paul Skeens or Mitch Keller deciding which one of the two they prefer throwing to, but I wouldn't rule it out either, would I? If it ends up being that, it's actually, it would really say something about what the Pirates really think about the pitching here and how reliant they are on it. If they're going to let the pitching decide that sort of thing, that's interesting. Regardless, it doesn't feel like both can make it. One of them's going to have to start in AAA. One of them's going to start in the majors as the backup. I do think there's going to be enough at bats there. So let's talk about the bats. That's a lot of the reason that they're both so important and why we're thinking so hard about keeping them, right? So in spring, Endy is clipping along at 321, OPS over 1,000. Should be an easy winner, right? Well, Henry's hitting too. Couple home runs. He's fallen off these last couple games, dropped down to 250, OPS 761. So I think it's safe to say that Henry is a little ahead on defense, but Endy is a little ahead on offense. And boy, doesn't it kind of feel like you have to make this decision based on offense when you look at the roster? When you really look at what this team has available to them and the kind of power they have, I'm not sure how you make that call. Do you maybe pick which one of these guys you think is going to hit more home runs? I think that's probably Henry Davis. Do you think it's going to be the one that gets on base more often? Endy. The switch hitter aspect certainly factors in there. He gives you another lefty stick. He gives you a righty stick if you need it. Ultimately, you'd hope they would let him warm to the task of playing a little bit of first base. He's even got some outfield experience, and they're not exactly stacked out there either. The arm is plenty good. I think he's shown more often than any player on the field how healthy he feels with it. He throws just about every opportunity he gets from behind the plate. Boy, is this a close one. I kind of called a few weeks ago that I thought it would be Henry Davis. But the more I've been watching Endy, the more I'm starting to see Endy really approach the at-bats differently. He's taken walks like he needs it like air to breathe. And Henry, he's worked hard on not being as frustrated on the field, but I would say these last couple games when it hasn't been going as good, I've started to see some of those flashes again. Still, here's a decision that's going to come to a head tomorrow. They let Endy Rodriguez catch a 7-inning stretch today of this game. And you have to figure that Henry Davis is likely to get a good long look on the last game tomorrow. If he doesn't, I think they're pretty much telling you what their decision is. If he does, I think they're telling you we really want every last stitch of information we can have before we make this call. It's going to be interesting. If I had to go right now, I'd say Henry Davis. But mostly because he was a 1-1, and I think he might suffer more from going to AAA than staying up here. And it's imperative they turn that bat into something, or at least give it the old college try. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. You never know who's going to win. Look how close Bobby Moe came the other night. I mean, if that didn't get you excited, I don't know what will. So visit fanduel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of the ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals, all in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as game time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, and as the Pirates regular season is coming up, I can count on them to help grab tickets that meet my needs. In fact, my favorite time to use it is when I'm traveling. I just used it last year when I went to a San Francisco Giants game in San Francisco. It was a last minute idea, and lo and behold, I got some nice, really affordable tickets and a great seat at a ballpark wasn't all that familiar with before. So really, really good service. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so it's not just a catcher battle. We've got Thomas Harrington too, pushing to make this rotation. Did he get a little bit of help from the injury lords? Yeah, I mean, with Jared Jones getting nicked up, it certainly could be a situation that kind of opened a door for Thomas Harrington. But the Pirates were treating him a little bit differently before the Jones injury even cropped up. I mean, they certainly made the decision to hold him out of the showcase game for the prospects the other night. I would have to think specifically because of the news that came out about Jared Jones and his elbow, which, we still don't fully understand. And I'm sure we will soon, but Thomas Harrington is just as capable as anyone else. He's the Pirates' number 3 prospect. I think a lot of people kind of glazed past him thinking of Bubba Chandler, and Bubba's exciting for his own reasons and has just as much opportunity to come up here and do something this year. But Thomas Harrington has looked the better of the two in this spring. He's got pinpoint command, and for a kid his age, a 23-year-old that kind of flew through the system, I think it's kind of incredible that he's where he's at. I didn't expect it. I mean, we knew he had good command. We liked it. The fastball kind of felt a little average, but he's got so much movement on it, and he can put it exactly where he wants to. It's just a mature pitcher that I think what the Pirates are probably seeing is there's not much more for him to learn in the minors. When you really sit there and watch him pitch, you can see him thinking his way through the at-bat already. That's stuff you don't see from guys until they've kind of gotten punched in the mouth. And we've been blessed with Paul Skeens already, and that's one of his attributes as well, on top of having the incredible stuff. Well, Thomas Harrington is so good at his craft that before being injured, Jared Jones was crediting him with teaching him a new pitch grip. And Paul Skeens himself has credited Thomas Harrington with teaching him a new pitch grip. I think what it says is here's a kid that literally is just studying how to pitch. This is a pitcher, not a thrower. Bubba will improve in that aspect, I think, as he goes on, because he's a really smart kid and kind of absorbs like a sponge a lot of this stuff too. But Thomas Harrington, man, he's that classic professor type, the one that just knows exactly where he's putting the ball and when. And his stuff is not a slouch. If you've ever seen his slider falls off a table. I mean, if you've been around a minute, think Kyle Crick, except he knows where it's going. I mean, now think about what kind of a weapon that could be. Or Johan Ramirez has a slider that reminds me a lot of Thomas Harrington's, except again, Thomas Harrington knows where it's going. I'm stoked for this kid. A lot of you that have read my stuff over at Steel City Pirates have probably heard me talk about how excited I was for him and thinking that he was probably even a little bit ahead of Bubba on my list, my personal list of who I thought was going to come up here and impact things quickly. But even I didn't expect him to get a chance out of spring. So interesting move if they make it. It sounds like the rotation is shaping up to be Paul Skeens, Andrew Heaney, Mitch Keller. Then I think they're going to go with probably Bailey Falter, and then sounds like, Harrington, which, wow. Their other options really were like to go back to, Mike Burrows, so they already had optioned to AAA. So, kind of once they option you to AAA and you're on the 40 man, they've essentially already told you, yeah, we know you need a little bit of work. There's no pressure here to make it right now. Go do your work. Well, they're not going to change their mind that you need to go and do work a week later, So even out of desperation, if they were that desperate or they didn't think Harrington was ready, they might be one of those people that were out there suiting like Patrick Corbin or Kyle Gibson or one of the free agents that somehow slipped through the cracks and got here. Instead, they are pretty deep here. They do have a lot of guys they'd like to try. Braxton Ashcraft's another guy that I think has a lot of promise on the 40 man. I don't think he's quite stretched out enough. I don't know if they feel good enough about him. Carmen Majinski, they just started stretching out. Was that an option they were going to go with a backing of Caleb Ferguson, who also had some interest in starting? I thought might be an option, especially since their bullpen's going to be so loaded with lefties. You might want to designate one of them the back end of a little bit of a opener, mid of the rotation type start situation. It looks to me like they're just going to go with the rookie, and the Pirates have become quite comfortable with this. They've broken camp with rookies now, potentially 2 years in a row. If they go this route, Jones the first time, Harrington this time. I don't think anybody expected Jones last year, and he just blew everybody away. A little bit of a different situation for Harrington. He kind of gets the opportunity because of the misfortune of another, but he also did an awful lot to make sure that he took advantage of it. So let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. We've been wondering all year how we were going to wind up seeing these kids, and here's how. Injury. And boy, Ben Cherington could wind up looking pretty smart for not trading either Harrington or Bubba Chandler for bats if they end up needing both of them and they end up producing the way a lot of us think they could.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
The next camp battle I wanted to talk about is a battle between two players that we have all kind of written off. You know, we didn't expect them to do anything else. Jack Sawinski and Ji-Hwan Bae. It's been incredible to watch. You write guys off because they have really poor seasons or they underproduce. Jack looked like just lost last year, and Bae either hasn't been able to stay on the field or just hasn't been good, you know. So I think we've all kind of been struggling with it a little bit. But they've both just done exactly what you'd want them to do. You bring guys into camp and you give them instructions heading into the off season and tell them things that you want them to work on. They have a new hitting coach that has gotten to both of these guys. They were given specific things that they had to deal with. Like, for instance, Jack needed to work on changing his swing, and he started working on it last year. He was definitely pulling off of everything, making himself useless against even right-handed pitching at times. And Ji-Hwan Bae has a tendency to almost look like he's trying to push the ball instead of swing through it. That has changed into a much more fluid swing this season. It's been fun to watch because when Ji-Hwan Bae is getting on base and hitting the ball into the gaps, or that kid is a game changer. There's a story somebody told really early on about an interaction that Tommy Pham had with Ji-Hwan Bae, where Bae hit a single to right center, and you know, a typical single. You wouldn't even think of it if you were watching the game. It's a single. You look up, boom, there's a single. It's one of those ones the announcers calling a single before it even lands, right? Well, Tommy Pham took Ji-Hwan Bae aside and said, for everyone on this team, that is a single, except you. For you, that's a double. Because Ji-Hwan Bae is that kind of fast, right? And, you know, you really got to thinking about it. Yeah, if he hits one towards the gap and that outfielder has to tear off to the right or left to get after it, yeah, Ji-Hwan Bae really should be pushing the envelope there a little bit more. And guess what Ji-Hwan Bae did the rest of the spring? He took off for second every time he hit a ball like that. It was exciting. Same turn though, Jack Sawinski has done everything you'd want him to do. He's hit the ball hard. 368 average, 998 OPS. Ji-Hwan Bae, no slouch either. 410 average, 1080 OPS, right? Again, we talked a little bit about with the catching position. Power has to factor in because it's just an element this team doesn't have. Both of them have hit one home run this spring. Again, spring home runs, I don't know what you want to do with that. They only count so much, right? Especially in Bradenton. We all know what the wind does there. But power potential, come on, that rests with Jack. So if you're gonna have a player that's gonna play, Jack Sawinski's probably the one you want to bring up here just for that element alone. It's funny. The people are calling Pham the starter. I don't care what you call him. It's probably a straight up platoon type thing until somebody proves that they hit the other side better than the other one does. Like there's not that much of a benefit to switching your righty or lefty and who's playing better defense. Based on last season, Bae or Jack could probably play better defense than Pham. And, you know, Pham's a veteran. I expect him to hit early in the season and fade like he has the last two. So eventually he's going to get overtaken. That feels like one of these kids has an opportunity to start out kind of on the bench or in a platoon role and ultimately win themselves a spot. Jack Sawinski's got some pedigree in MLB. Ji-Hwan Bae, not so much. Ji-Hwan Bae has really struggled except for his initial call up to the majors. So it's kind of a surprise to see anything out of him. They both have options. They don't have to take either of them. It just feels like they need a left-handed outfielder to kind of augment their pseudo starter of Tommy Pham. So if that's the case, it's got to be one of them. Man, how do you lean on this one? Tell me in the comments. I want to know what you think. I think a lot of us wrote both of these guys off. G1 Bay probably more than Jack, but they've both performed, and that's all you can ask. When you say that a player needs to do X, Y, and Z, and then they show up doing X, Y, and Z, you can do one of two things. You can either accept it and be happy that they did exactly what you hoped they'd do, or you can move the goalposts on them and start saying, well, now I got to see it in the regular season. Of course you have to see it in the regular season. Like, of course you do. Everybody knows that. But that doesn't mean that you don't let them win when they win. And Jack Sawinski and G1 Bay this spring, they've been arguably the best hitters that the Pirates have had. They've torn the cover off the ball. They really have. Jack's hit lefties pretty well. G1 Bay, what I'm really liking is just any kind of contact. He is a threat to make it. I still think, for whatever reason, the kid struggles to get jumps when he's trying to steal bases. That's a problem. But you know who's been stepping up and stealing some bases of his own? Jack Sawinski. Jack Sawinski has been using his legs a little bit. He's always been fast, but he's never been considered a base stealer. Good base runner. He's the type of guy that you expect to score from first to third on a double. But he's never been a base stealing threat. He's somebody that you knew could do it, but you just didn't try it very often. I'd say probably put him in the same class as you would Brian Reynolds. Brian Reynolds can steal bases. He just doesn't a lot. Jack Sawinski's been taken off more. Maybe that's a direct response to being in such a tight competition with G1 Bay. It's really the differentiator. So show that you have it too. Jack made a great diving catch in the outfield. Bay makes a great diving catch in the outfield. They've both got decent arms. They both play the positions pretty well. They both can sort of play center field. That's the weird thing here. If one of them is also going to be the backup center fielder, well, you got two lefties backing up a lefty center fielder, right? Not the best situation in the world. They could wind up trying somebody like Jared Triolo out there. It's why I thought Billy Cook had a real good shot. He just hasn't had a real good camp. A lot of walks. He's played great defense. I think you'd just like to see a little bit more contact out of him. All that said, these camp battles are fun. In the past, we would have been arguing about like somebody like Michael Chavis making the team over somebody else that probably shouldn't be on a major league roster either. All in all, this is the way you want it to go. It means you're moving in the right direction. Did they move enough? Well, we'll see. That's it for today, everybody. Really, really appreciate you joining me. Thank you for making Locked On Pirates your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.